So I'm really, really excited to welcome you all to this special launch event for the Brazilian policy paper. I started this job as the knowledge and policy lead for WEAll in March of 2020. So pretty interesting timing, of course. And so when I was hired, the idea was I was going to develop a policy guide and a few briefing papers, but it felt really important that in this moment of crisis and transformation, that we not just synthesize the existing ideas and solutions that are out there, but also support thought leadership in how we can really proactively rebuild towards a well-being economy within different locations and worldwide, and in specific issue areas as well. And so with WEAll not being a think tank, right? Our aim is rather to catalyze a movement and to support collaboration that is needed for action and change. And so the process that we use for developing these papers really matters just as much as the outcome. And I can truly say that this paper and this group of incredible authors is really represented best practice of what is possible by the membership in this area. So I remember last year, WEAll saying that this group had agreed that they were going to take as much time as was needed. They weren't going to rush in order to really think about what this alternative vision for the Brazilian economy looks like, what real principles and policies are needed to invoke that transformation. And so through this process, they not only developed this beautifully written and very powerful and clear paper, but also it has helped to serve as a foundation for building a WEAll hub in Brazil as well, where they're now inviting policymakers and businesses and NGOs and citizens who share this vision to come together and really move from theory to action. So I just really want to thank both the authors, but also everybody who's joined today, because it is my hope that in the months and the years to come, we can really replicate the magic of this group in how we work together and co-create ideas and then translate those into action moving forward. And then on a just personal note, I just want to say what a wonderful group this has been and what a joy it has been working with them. Their warmth and their passion always left me with a huge smile and a very full heart at the end of our meetings, but also their self-organization and their brilliance made drafting this a breeze. Yeah. So at least from my side, I just really want to thank you. And I want to pass it over to these authors to share their really beautiful vision for how to build back better in Brazil. Thanks.
What an amazing introduction. Thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. My internet signal is not so well, so if everything happens, just let me know. I'm gonna close the video. It's indeed a pleasure to be here to launch this paper. I remember when I met Ana in Encontro B 2 years ago, and we started talking about how we can develop a well-being economy in Brazil. How can we spread the world about this beautiful narrative? And it's been an amazing journey, co-creating with these wonderful co-authors of mine here. The connection with WEAll began with my company called Ionica. It's a B Corp and impact policy, let's say. And after co-creating some of the projects,
maybe somebody else from the co-authors and could take over.
Yeah, sure. I'll just take a second here. João, can you hear me? Are you can you take your video off? Yeah, okay. So I'll speak for João Bernardo. João Bernardo was speaking about Ionica, right, which was the center of conversion between all of the co-authors and which actually connected us to the Wellbeing Economic Alliance, this fruitful encounter last year. So Ionica is this impact agency that connects business to a sustainable path in many types of journeys that they create. And with this, João envisioned the Legal Impact Lab, which I was actually the first consultant to be working for the Legal Impact Lab last year, which is a public policy action tank or impact lab that we're calling, to try to harness ideas into actionable and actually tangible purposes, connecting with other policy hubs, governmental hubs, private entity hubs. We work a lot with, have been working with the B Corps, the legal community in some parts of Brazil, and the national B Corps community also. And then we encountered the Wellbeing Economic Alliance. And then we just saw all this synergy to create this starting movement that which Amanda proposes for us, right, Amanda, which was to write a briefing paper. We had many options on our, we could have gone simpler, but we were very ambitious, and we said, yeah, let's go for a briefing paper and talk about Brazil as a whole. And we know that it was a very challenging task, one which we took with a lot of humility and humbleness. And we tried to reach a middle ground in which we could speak about principles that talked to all the sectors of around Brazil, right? Which is such a diverse and complex country to try to embed in one specific statement. And that's where we saw the richness of our propositions, to try to be at the same time humble but ambitious, right? And create a call for action that could bring more propositions in. We're not saying, so when we're listing, for example, our public policy examples that we wish could be developed, we're not saying these are the only ones. There's a rich plethora of public policy that can be created from the birthplace of all these principles that we are proposing. And there's probably many more principles that can be proposed across all this cross-section of the diverse society of Brazil. So I guess now I can, I don't know if João is back, I guess not, right? So I think I can share my screen. So we have some slides. He's here?
Yeah, he's here. JB?
Oh, João, JB, do you wanna share your screen, or do you want me to do it?
No, please, João, go ahead, and thank you for the beautiful introduction that you made. I'm using my phone now, so I'm just gonna be following you.
Perfect.
You guys.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, let me share my screen. Let me just go back. Yeah, so I just made a brief introduction. I talked a little bit about the Legal Impact Lab, the public policy from Ionica. We would like first to talk about the foundational principles from WEAll that really inspired us. So we just want to also make honor what came before us. These principles are written in our introductory pages of the briefing paper, and they really guided what we created after to bring this to the reality of Brazil. So we really want to focus on these 5 pillars, which is dignity, ecocentrism, which for me specifically is very important, connection, justice, and participation. All these are embedded inside the specific principles that adapt to the Brazilian reality. For dignity, we really do think that everyone deserves the rights to live comfortably, safely, and happily. Ecocentrism addresses that the natural world needs to be restored and preserved for all forms of life. The connection is that we need to nurture a sense of belonging and developing institutions that serve the common good. And this one is one that I particularly think that has really strong spiritual repercussions for us as a society. Justice, that we need justice in all dimensions of life at the center of our economic systems, substantially reducing social inequalities. This is a strong one. And participation, which is one that is addressed by our last principle, but is also connects with the sense of belonging and a sense of participatory action, in where we think citizens are lacking a place of having a say in how our society is going forward. So I have the task about talking about regenerative development, which is actually a very challenging one. I'm aware that the word regenerative is actually a buzzword in this last year. I personally, I didn't actually introduce myself, so sorry guys. I was caught off guard here. I'm João Daniel, and I'm actually a lawyer and an attorney and a consultant. I work in the corporate and environmental area, and I also work with startups and technology, but I do work a lot in voluntary carbon markets and with climate change technology. So from my point of view, the regenerative development has a really specific sense, and I'm aware that this will have a very acute and specific sense for any one of you guys. If you work on industrial processes, this can be one thing. If you guys work on more rural areas, this can have another meaning. So please do see this as the philosopher Derrida would say, as an open text that's alive for interpretation and changes. So as I was saying, as we developed this paper, me and my colleagues, we had quite a challenge to understand what regenerative development meant for our country. And in this sense, it became clear that from a high level, this meant bringing the ecological processes into the center of public policy decision making. And as with other principles, this had deep political and spiritual repercussions for the fabric of our society. In Brazil and in the world, we're living an unprecedented ecological crisis. We live at this moment in Brazil, and I don't think we need to be subtle or here on this statement, but we live in a moment of deep political divide also, where predatory and violent political discourse is bringing our environmental legislation down, making indigenous and traditional communities suffer with land grabbing, general violence. Biomes are being affected by droughts, by severe wildfires or man-made fires. And all this just represents the embodiment of this political situation in which we are not going in favor of any pro-life policy anymore. And I do see this as a mirror for the rest of the world in some stances. But on a positive note, we do have hope as a group, and I'm sure that everybody here is here in the Wellbeing Economic Alliance has hope as a collective, right? We urgently need to shift to what I like to call a nature-based solution, New Deal. For Brazil, this has a specific meaning because we still have pristine ecosystems, unlike Europe, for example, that is on another process of rewilding. Brazil is still a wild continent that has untouched portions of the Amazon rainforest, represents 60% of our territory. We have the Cerrado biome, the Pantanal biome, the Atlantic forest biome, which is one of the most destructive ones. But and we need to harness this power. What I like to say, that Brazil is a nature-based solutions powerhouse, and we need to harness this power to bring back the regenerative development of the country and start to understand how we want to go forward as a country. So the basic concept here is to bring back nature protection laws and regard them as a pillar of our foundational pillar of our country. And on a more high level, what I would say, on a level of the principles, I would say of bringing back the commons as a foundational part of our society. And I like to call this the regeneration of the commons, bringing the regeneration of the commons back to public policy. And as a connector for this subject, and this also connects for the second principle, is bringing back our First Nations, right? Our indigenous and traditional communities here in Brazil to the center of the construction of these public policies. This is something that it's talked a lot about in Brazil, but is hardly is acted upon. And we don't need just to be inspired by the connection and the guardianship and the stewardship of traditional and First Nations of our countries. We need to actually empower them and see them as major stakeholders of this regenerative development that we're talking about. So we had lots of examples of policy examples. And again, this is an open and a live text for new insertions and new examples. But I would like just to briefly talk that for me, it's very dear to talk about payment for ecosystem services and also the bioeconomy policy that we mentioned. First, because as I mentioned, we are still, and we have in many portions of the country untouched and pristine environments, which provide major ecosystem services for the rest of the country, which is a major agricultural powerhouse too. And if we don't, if we're not, if we're just, it's not enough now just to find polluters. Now we need to pay people that are actually protecting nature, protecting water basins, drainage basins, or protecting specific portions of forests, are there are many examples I could go on here, but we need to really harness this potential for bringing public and private capital to investing on people that are protecting. And the bioeconomy policy, which is also a wide term that could be applied to many specific circumstances. But yeah, we need to have sustainable forest management. We need to have biotechnology being applied, and we need that this money to go back to the First Nations so that they can continue this virtual cycle of having um, a, a, a rich bioeconomy in which all the stakeholders of our countries are considered. I will also talk about our second principle, which is the climate emergency. And I'm aware that this is another buzzword, climate change. I'm not the biggest fan of only talking about carbon and climate change. I think that we are in a carbon-centric mode, be it from an ESG point of view, be it from a public policy point of view. And I do think that we need to address other crises we live in, other ecological crises like the biodiversity crisis, like the desertification crisis, like the ocean acidification crisis, like nitrogen cycle crisis. The list will go on and on. But I do think that climate change is the tip of the iceberg, and we can harness the power of this tip of the iceberg to our agendas. And in this sense, I do think that climate change is a specific tip of the crisis that we can be using as a cross-reference for major public policies that need to be implemented by the government. And in Brazil specifically, we're starting many of them from greenhouse gas inventories for cities, governments, local governments, subnational, jurisdictional, red, you name it, we're still starting. But I think that we have many well-intentioned politicians and private actors and civil society that are going the right direction. And at the end of the day, it's not anymore about just talking about climate change from a high-level perspective, from a public policy perspective, because in Brazil, we live in a very, very unequal society. And we know that climate change will hit hardest peripheral communities. And if we don't address this issue now in our public policies in Brazil, this will be just what anyone could go from calling it an unfair to a new colonialist public policy that's not addressing the real point of view. So when we're reading about, for example, the Paris Agreement, that's talking about adaptation, mitigation, like why would we be talking about this on a national framework, from a national perspective, if we're not talking about vulnerable communities, peripheral communities? And in Brazil, from our unequal point of view, from our country that's deeply affected by inequality, we need to be really sincere and honest of who is going to be affected and where we need to address money. If we're thinking about, for example, climate, urban planning, public investments, government issues for bonds, how all this money that will be redirected for climate change adaptation and mitigation, how they will address specific communities that are most affected by climate change. And yeah, we have many policies, but I think that we could be discussing this. We got really inspired by the donut economy. That's something that we could really bring into Brazil to bring a more holistic sense of about urban planning. Brazil, we need to really invest heavily on the renewable energy. Even so, we like to say our electric matrix is really renewable. It's heavily reliant on hydropower, so which is an environmental disaster, and we're literally damming wild rivers on a crazy scale here in Brazil. And and we will feel in the next months actually when summer hits Brazil, because we will have a rationing problem, electricity problem, because our droughts are on a unprecedented level from the last decades, and so we need to rethink our matrix, and we need to invest in renewable energy and many other policy examples. And I do hope you guys we can talk about this after. This is open. I would like to say that we are planning on writing more specific papers about all of these principles that we really think they deserve a more deep reflection to talk about and expand the fabric that constitute them. So this discussion will go on and on. So now I think I pass the ball to my next colleague, that is, I guess it's Sidesi, that will talk about racial justice.
You're muted, see.
Now you can listen me?
Yes.
Can you listen me? Okay. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to me to be here with all of you. Thank you all for this opportunity, this partnership. It's a really pleasure, and I'm very happy to be here and share a bit with you. I bring some numbers because I need to talk about racial justice. And we know in this pandemic period, the inequality grow a lot in the same time where the global billionaires becomes more rich. Yeah, they are increasing 69%. That's more than the last 15 years. And the same time when they increase them, these billionaires increase. And the same time, we have a lot of people that don't have what to eat. Yeah, 200 millions of people are in a poverty situation, and in Brazil is not different. We have in this moment 14 million people in extremely poverty. Yeah, and 27% of our population. This means 58 million people, they don't know what they will eat tomorrow. Yeah, and inside of these, and we know the most of these people are Black and indigenous people. And inside of these, the feelings of the population about our inequality is like around 70% of the population, they believe that the color of the skin influence hiring by companies. Also, this influence the approach of the police. And these bring us, because we are a country that we grow on base of the racism. We are one of the most racist country in the world. And the situation of the Black people, that the majority live in the favela community. And then if you want, João, you can pass for the next one. They are suffering because the approach of the police. Only for we have idea in June, and because in this pandemic period, the police can't go in the favela. But in June, the police went to the favela and killed 28 Black people. Yeah, and because of the our politics against to the Black people and the indigenous, the UN community against racial discrimination notifies Brazil for atrocities against indigenous and Black people. And what we are doing, like what the societies are doing in the middle of all of this, yeah. We have a lot of campaigns. Yeah, one of the most campaigns is like to provide people food. Yeah, and also has campaigns to help the people to know about our history and plan our future. Yeah, and also we are here. Yeah, WEAll now has a hub in Rio, in Brazil. Yeah, to help us to think, to plan, and to engage people for a well-being economy in Brazil. And we are here, yeah, to present this to you also, to take your support, yeah, to share the Brazil situation, because when we share, we bring people with us that we can think about solutions. Yeah, and this is because we are here now. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Daisy. I'm psychologist, clinic psychologist, but also I'm working with Black communities and Black projects, yeah, for sustainable development. And because that I'm here with Leo, Legal Impact Lab, to help Brazil for this well-being economy. And I need to pass for my colleague. The next one, yeah, is Bruna. Bruna?
Hi, I'm here. Thank you, Daisy. Principle number 5. My name is Bruna. I'm an environmental lawyer and activist, and I'm talking from Recife, northeast of Brazil. And I am very happy to be here with you all, and very happy to collaborate to the document, to the paper, and my path and my search for live my purpose on my work leads me on this way to positive impact, legal thinking, and the connection with Ionica and João and Bruna, João, Daniel, and Daisy. We are a very lightning group. I love it to work with you all. And the principle of diversity and empowerment in Brazil, our mission was to analyze the data and to think about what is the most important thing to think to achieve global challenges with the reality of Brazil. So in diversity and empowerment, Brazil got some serious issues as well. We are still a country that thinks and lives in a colonialist way, and our representatives are white, male, and heterosexual. And we got a population that are 51.8 of women, and we got only 11.69% of mayors that are women. And the data are not on our side. We got some serious issues, and we got to think how to repair this inequality, how to build back a society that are more inclusive to women, more with opportunities of gender equality, because we got 77, I think it's worldly, but 77% of the women gain what 77% what men gain in the same job. We are the country that the first that more the number of trans people assassinated here in Brazil. We are the number 1, and other types of inclusivity and the policies must take a look to this place. And I think it's very urgent because we cannot kill people because of who them are. So we got some suggestions of policies, but I think it's passes through education, passes through some education that are able to transform and to live the diversity, how we can, as we can see in nature, we don't want a monoculture of people. We want diversity, we want inclusivity, and we want, in first place, safety. People cannot die for who they are. So as suggestion that on this design of public policies, a national multi-sector campaign to promote diversity. And we must, as an example, in my city, the institute that represent lawyers never have a woman in representation. We got just one president, female, and she got impeachment. And this reverberates in every layers of our community, and we need to secure that people has equal opportunity, and this historical inequality must be regenerate as well as nature, as monoculture. We need to regenerate people to diversity and to be happy and to be safe and to be alive. So thank you. I will call here in Brazil, we call Xará, who have the same name as you, Bruna Risman.
Hi, thank you, Bruna. But I think, João, are you going to talk? Can you talk now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Oh, good. Amazing. So I'm gonna talk a bit about the principle number 6, the triple positive impact and investments. So in Brazil, well, after the whole creation of the concept in triple bottom line by John Elkton and all the concept of sustainable development since the 90s, I think we're finally getting the idea of having a business that generates social and environmental impact apart from financial impact is finally getting the mainstream. And the situation in Brazil is we are advancing with different policies, and especially considering the work with our friends and friends of Journey, the B Corps movement, Sistema B Brasil, the representation of B Corps in Latin America. There is a work being led by Sistema B and other organizations together with the Ministry of the Economy, and it's called N Impacto. So N Impacto is a committee of triple positive impact policy, and there is a decree that was published 2 years ago that is regulating what is triple positive impact business. So finally, we're actually having the concept of a business that is not traditional, but it's like a 2.5 business, a business that actually is born to address social and environmental issues, is having its concept regulated, defined in the law. So now our deputies, our Congress, know what is a business that is not traditional. So this was pretty much the first achievement that we made in Brazil, and this started 2 years ago. And now we are making those laws in subnational levels. So we got this same law approved in the state of Rio Grande do Norte. We got the same law approved in the state of Rio, and then in Minas Gerais. And now we are in other states also going through the same effort. And now we are talking to the municipalities as well to make sure this law is approved in another subnational level, in the local level. And I believe in terms of policy, this is essential to make sure that the government leads together with the private sector, obviously, but leads policies that can address diversity, like Cedais was talking, anti-racial laws and social impact laws, environmental laws, It's obviously the market of triple positive impact is already been there for a long time. The arena of impact investing is growing a lot in Brazil. We are a big market of that. There are lots of certification and B Corps. But finally, now in terms of a well-being policy, well-being economy, we are beginning to address that in terms of regulation. And I'm happy to discuss some of the examples of the laws that are already on track in Brazil. But basically, this is, let's say, the departure point, the beginning of a new era that we can, that someone can open a business and say, well, I'm actually, I'm addressing social and environmental issues. I'm not a traditional business. And the second very important thing that is also policy that is also being created, it's called benefit cooperation, which is, it's part of the agenda of the Minister of the Economy. And like João was saying, we don't need to be so subtle now to understand what's going on politically in Brazil. So we hope that in the end of next year, we can really push this agenda forward. I mean, accelerating this agenda, because it's, you know, it's a bit hard in the moment to keep going with that. But yeah, we are, how can I say, very optimistic about the next 2 years in terms of triple positive impact. And yeah, please, I pass over to Bruna to talk a bit about the participatory and peaceful policies.
Thank you, João. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here representing this brave paper with our best intentions. I'm Bruna. As you notice, we are 2 Brunas and 2 Joãos, and once a Daisy, the one and only. And I'm a lawyer, and I'm passionate about anthroposophy. I don't know if you know about it, but it's a really nice science to learn from the human being. I work for Sistema B, the organization that represents B-Lab here in Brazil, connecting large enterprise companies to the B movement. And I hope you're all having a great day and enjoying this session. I'll talk about our last principle, which is participatory and peaceful societies, and how sustainability is linked to it. Sustainability, in essence, is the ability to reconnect nature, society, and the economy. As we discussed previously, we need to regenerate connections with each other, with the planet, and especially with our own conscience. Because if we go deeper, this is also a spiritual and inner journey. When we wrote this paper last year, the global political context seems heavier. But regarding Brazil's moment, still our major concern here with this principle is to strengthen democracy. The strong political polarization that has taken place in Brazil in recent years, following the global wave of extreme ideologies, has damaged the dialogue and understanding between people. So empathy loses quality and strength where antagonism predominates. Fake news, denial of science and history have assumed compromising proportions, corroding relationships' trust. In the other hand, in the broader legal universe, we witness the rise of new mediation techniques enhanced by interdisciplinary connections, for example, with nonviolent communication. And the demand for a real and thoughtful dialogue brings a new era of extrajudicial mediations, facilitations, reconciliations, conflict management, restorative justice, composing a more humanized paradigm for the legal sphere. Changing the lens now for community empowerment to address dignity, as Ron said, it is one of WEAll principles. It is crucial to listen to all stakeholders directly involved in local decision-making, creating effective process and productive results. These approaches and philosophies offer possibilities of new arrangements and more inclusive ways to access justice and foster participatory and peaceful societies regarding an independent and positive environment. Dialogue and belongings are main functions of a healthy political system that nurtures democracy. And that's why we address this principle. And we have some policy examples, but I think we are a little ahead of time. So we want to listen to you guys, see if you have any questions, any doubt, anything you want to reflect on. So please, you're welcome to share.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. That was incredible. So yeah, I think as Bruno was saying, we have about 15 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions or comments or things that really resonated with them on the basis of this paper, this presentation they'd like to share, they can just unmute themselves or raise their hand or put it in the chat. So as you prefer.
Hi guys, firstly congratulations on all your hard work and also for presenting in English. I couldn't present in Portuguese, although I am trying to learn Portuguese, so congratulations on that. What do you see, you sort of mentioned the next year being an important year, and developing some of the policies, so what do you see as the next steps really for you?
I guess I said that this was more in terms of a political situation of the country. So we have elections next year and federal elections. And that's why I said that we're hoping to, in the federal level, we can push this agenda forward, because we're hoping that the current political will feel and yeah, but in terms of state and municipality level, we are going forward because it doesn't depend on the federal law. It's we are federation and we can make laws, but not, let's say, if we need to create a new law that change the corporate act, we cannot do that in the state level or on the municipal level or even the tax law. So some things depend on the federal level, but lots of well-being policies can be created in subnational level. So we are very optimistic about that, and we're already, doing everything that we can to make that happen. Did I answer you, or was it too vague?
Yeah, no, that answered. Thank you. Yeah, no, that answered.
Wonderful. Anyone else have a question or a comment? I see here Michael has been typing in the chat. Would you like to ask a question or bring a comment?
I guess my question would be, can you leverage this, what seems to be an overriding direction of the Constitution, that probably not every country has the specific reference to well-being. In the US Constitution, they speak of the pursuit of happiness. My take on that is that it's the pursuit, not necessarily the achievement. But the Brazilian Constitution is very specific in its prioritizing well-being. And can you leverage that?
Michael, I would say that there's not a right answer for your question, but I would say that we are well, like you said, our constitution is very advanced in this sense, even though it was written in 1988. It's a third level of rights constitution, as we say. It's connecting to more, bringing out, going to the fraternal level of what we think as an ecocentric approach to the world. Even from an environmental perspective, it's very, very advanced. From a social perspective also. But so I do think that we have the blueprint for what we need, but it's not enough, because we know that law needs to be acted upon. We need somebody to execute specific public policies so that we can territorialize public policies. So our constitution, sometimes it's even poetic. It's beautiful. It's an amazing, it's an amazing blueprint for the country, and it has been for more than 30 years. And if we have the right government to harness the power of our constitution, we can do amazing things, because we have, from my perspective, from environmental law, we have everything that's ready for us to have like our forest code comes from our constitution, and it just brings this alignment. But if we're not executing the protection that our forest code that's derived from a constitution, if you don't have public laws to execute this, nothing will happen. So I think this is where specifically the Legal Impact Lab and Ionica focuses, is on more going on trying to go on a municipal and state level to understand where we can help public agents and help people that are already working on policies to execute specific programs and bring action, right? So that's why we call ourselves an action center, and that's why we think that even though we have all the capacity, we need to now think about action, and we need to start thinking about. So we can talk about, for example, payment for ecosystem services for decades, but if there's not a government or a private entity actually providing capital to smallholders or even large landholders, which are protecting their forests, nothing's happening. We just have this beautiful written constitution or state code saying that payment for ecosystem services will happen like this and this and that, but we need action. I hope this answers your question, and thanks for your question too.
I love it, Joao. Lisa messaged and said I'd vote for him. Yeah, so it sounds like maybe you need to get in government. Yeah.
That's a good suggestion, João. If I can add something, Michael, and thank you for your question. I'm personally really excited to prototype some new municipalism policies in Brazil. I've been very stimulated by the work that is going on in Europe, especially in Barcelona, the Fearless Cities, in the UK, in the Preston model with community wealth building, even in Cleveland, Ohio. There are some mechanisms and schemes that actually put the municipality, the local authority, with more devoluted powers, with more devolution happening at the municipal level, and actually acting not just as fixing the problems of the market, like Mariana Mazzucato would say, but actually being an entrepreneur and designing policies with multi-stakeholder approach and partnership. And I believe we need that in Brazil because we are a continental country. It's 250 million people, 27 states, and obviously different biomes and ecosystems with different needs, different social systems, and a constitution, federal law doesn't work for every state, doesn't work for every locality. And we just need to address that specifically and customize that process. So yeah, this pretty much is a bit addressed in the Principle 7 that Bruna was just sharing to us. Yeah, new municipalism. What would be the new municipalism phase of Rio de Janeiro, for example?
Wonderful.
Yeah, yes, I had a question. I would love to hear the author's reflections on how advanced you think understanding and appetite for these ideas is in the population in Brazil. And actually, when you mentioned the population size in Brazil there, I think I knew that, but it blows my mind to think of the numbers being in Scotland, where we have around 6 million people. And I find it hard to talk about what Scottish people think. So it's a hard question, but I would love to know your feelings on whether it feels like there's an emerging movement in Brazil behind the ideas that you've just talked about that are there in the paper, or whether there's a lot of work to do to build understanding and win people around.
Great question. Bruna's or Sidaisy?
Oh, I can share with Sidaisy or with Bruna. I think it's that maybe a focus point, because we are in a situation right now that everything is shaking. So the political situation is every day, and the pandemic with our political situation leave us with not knowing anything. And when we think that everybody is aware of what is going on, the political movement seems to bring the how can we say retrocesso in English? Like the
Go back. I don't know.
Like a pullback in our policies, and negationism and some extreme right thinking and liberalism, not in the right way, but in a pullback of rights and a pullback of our constitution. Our constitution is beautiful, but not applied in reality, not yet. We've got 30 years and continental country that many challenges, and now we are going back. But we are facing this moment, and it's hard to know what everybody think, because right now we got this kind of power in majority in Congress, and we thought that this is going to be over, but the Brazil right now is shaking, and we need to reinforce the governance beyond governments. I think this is so it's a jewel that we must be attached on. Doesn't matter who are in the power right now. We need to apply governance to Brazil to save us, I would say.
Yeah, like my colleague says that our constitution is not for everybody, and this is very clear in Brazil. And now one of the important things we are doing is educate the population, like what's your right and what we can do. We can't act alone. We need to be in a group and partnership together. But one of the biggest things is like to educate the population, also the Black population, for they need to know their rights. It's okay, the rights not respected by the police, by the government, but they need to know, because if they know about the Brazil history, why we are in these conditions, we can change the future. Yeah, and change the futures means we need to put leaders that has this knowledge about the whole society, about the job they are doing there, because that's a job, yeah. And this job can't be anymore for only one specific group in Brazil, because the Black and Indigenous, we are the majority of the population. Yeah, and we have a very small power, yeah, to change Brazil. But little by little, we are doing like a lot of course. Example now, together with the Federal University, we are doing a course for the Black community, for everybody. It's not only for the Black community, and has a lot of teachers. And that's important, because the teachers will work in the classroom. And more than 400 people in 1 week apply for this course. And now we are teach them. They don't need to do a test. What they need to do is an action. Yeah. And then we divide them in small group and to help them to put their plan in execute, yeah, turn this plan real, yeah. And these things that we are doing in Brazil, because the population, they don't know. And this is a big system that is good for our politicians, that they are aware for everything. because in this way, they can't vote with conscience, with knowledge, with analysis. Yeah, and then WEAll work is a long walk, but we are doing, and we need to work in the basis, like educate the population about our constitutions, our rights.
Thank you so much, Daisy. So I'm conscious we only have 2 more minutes, so I'd love to sort of wrap up, but I know, Bruna, I haven't really had a chance to say anything during the Q&A, so I just wanted to offer you if there's anything you would like to say in closing, no pressure. I can also close as well, but if there's anything you'd like to share as well, I welcome it.
Well, I really would like to share a positive message. It's hard times to be positive, but I really think with the pandemic and everything we went through and this ESG wave and watching companies how they're behaving, Brazil is the second, I don't know if it has changed, but I think it is the second country that has more signatures to net zero campaign. So we have so many companies engaged. I've seen this research that says that 80% of Brazilian electors who will vote for president are considering voting for a president that is prioritizing the rainforest, the Amazon. So we are in the dark, but there's light. And I'm really into looking at those lights.
Well, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So with our final moment, I just want to thank everybody for joining. I want to just re-emphasize how beautiful this paper was, but also this group, the fact that you bring environmental, legal, anthropological, psychological, like some backgrounds to this is seen with how interdisciplinary and rich your content and your ideas are. But I really hope that as you work on building the WEAll Hub, you can continue to find more people with similar passions and different experiences to continue to grow this wonderful vision for the country. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much to the authors, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.